Your phone knows where you slept last night. It knows where you go every Tuesday morning. It knows what time you usually wake up. It knows which shops you walked past last weekend, which ones you went into, and roughly how long you spent in each of them. And without any intervention on your part, it has been sharing versions of that information with advertising networks, app developers, and data brokers for as long as you have owned it. Not because your phone was hacked, not because you did anything wrong, because the default settings on every major smartphone platform are configured for data collection, not for your privacy. The manufacturers and the apps they host have business models built around knowing as much about you as possible. And the defaults they ship your device with reflect those business interests, not yours. Today we are going to change that. I am going to walk you through the specific settings that matter, explain in plain language what each one actually does, and give you the exact steps to find and change them on both Android and iPhone. By the end of this, OU will have taken back a significant amount of control over what your phone knows about you and who it tells. Let us start with the one setting that sits at the foundation of how advertising surveillance works on mobile devices. Every Android and iPhone carries a special identifier. On Android, it is called the Google Advertising ID, sometimes abbreviated GAID. On iPhone, it is called the Identifier for Advertisers, or IDFA. It is a long string of letters and numbers, essentially a code that represents you across every app on your device. Here is why it matters. When any app on your phone requests your advertising ID, which most apps do automatically without asking your permission separately, that app can tag all of your activity with the same identifier. So the shopping app you use notes your advertising ID. The game you play notes your advertising ID. The weather app notes your advertising ID. The news app notes your advertising ID. Each of these apps, or the advertising networks they work with, can now see that the same person who searches for running shoes also checks the weather at 6 in the morning, plays strategy games in the evening, and reads political news. That cross-app profile is extraordinarily valuable for targeting advertising, and more concerning, is purchasable by data brokers who aggregate it with data from other sources to build profiles of individuals that are detailed enough to infer your income, your relationship status, your health concerns, and your political views. When Apple introduced app tracking transparency in 2021, they required apps to actually ask permission before accessing your IDFA. The result was immediate and telling. When users were given a clear choice, approximately 75% of them said no. 3 out of 4 people, when asked directly whether they wanted to be tracked across apps, declined. That tells you everything about what the default state without that question was doing. On iPhone, here's how to address this. Go to Settings, scroll down to Privacy and Security, tap on Tracking. At the top, you will see an option that says Allow apps to request to track. If this is on, apps can ask for permission to track you. Turning it off denies all tracking requests automatically without showing you the dialog. Beneath it, you will see any apps that have previously been granted tracking permission. Review this list and revoke access for any app you do not want following you across the internet. On Android, go to Settings and find Google, or in some versions, it is under Privacy, then Ads. You will see an option to delete your advertising ID. Do this. Once deleted, Google will generate a new one, and you can delete that one too. The option you want is Delete Advertising ID, not just opt out of personalized ads, because the opt-out still allows the ID to be read, just with a note that says this person opted out, which is itself a data point. Deleting removes the identifier entirely. Now let us talk about something that most people have never seen, even though it contains a surprisingly detailed record of their life. Your phone maintains a location history. This is separate from the GPS-based navigation you consciously use. It is a background system that logs places you visit regularly, tags them with the time of your visits, and stores this data to power what are described as personalized experiences and suggestions. On iPhone, this feature is called Significant Locations. To find it, go to Settings, then Privacy and Security, then Location Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, and tap System Services, then scroll down to Significant Locations. If it is enabled, you will see a history of places you have visited, organized by city with the dates and times of your visits, your home, your workplace, your gym, your doctor's office, the bar you went to on Friday night, all of it logged with timestamps. Apple states this data is stored encrypted on your device and is not transmitted to Apple in identifiable form. That is better than the alternative. But consider what it means if your device is accessed by someone else, if your iCloud account is compromised, or if your device is seized. The data is there, detailed, specific, and potentially revealing about your daily routine, your relationships, your health appointments, your religious practices, and your political activities. Turn it off. Scroll down in Significant Locations and toggle it off. Then tap Clear History to remove what has already been collected. On Android, Google has a feature called Timeline, previously called Location History. This is connected to your Google account, not just your device. To find it, go to your Google account settings, which you can access through Settings, then Google, then manage your Google account. From there, go to Data and Privacy, then Location History. Here you can pause Location History. So future data is not collected, and you can delete existing location data, either for specific time ranges or entirely. The distinction here between Apple and Google's approach is important to understand. Apple stores significant locations on your device in encrypted form. Google historically stored location history on their servers in a form that was accessible to law enforcement through court orders. Google has been moving toward on-device storage as well, but the transition has been gradual and varies by account and device settings. Checking and disabling this on your Google account level ensures the collection stops regardless of which Android device you are using. Now, here is a privacy issue that almost no one knows about, and that is genuinely difficult to discover unless you know exactly where to look. Your phone's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth scanning does not stop when you turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Read that again. Turning off Wi-Fi in your quick settings does not stop your Android phone from scanning for nearby Wi-Fi networks. It stops you from connecting to them. But a background service called Wi-Fi scanning continues detecting nearby networks and using them for location purposes. The same is true for Bluetooth scanning. Even with Bluetooth toggled off in the quick settings, a background scanning service continues listening for nearby Bluetooth devices and using them to contribute to location data. On Android, to find and disable this, go to Settings, then Location. Look for an option called Wi-Fi and Bluetooth scanning. In some versions of Android, it is under Location, Advanced. You will see two toggles, Wi-Fi scanning and Bluetooth scanning. Turn both of these off. This does not prevent you from using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth normally. It stops the background scanning that continues when those features appear to be off. Why does this matter beyond a general location accuracy? In retail environments, airports, shopping malls, and public spaces, businesses deploy Bluetooth low-energy beacons throughout their spaces. These beacons are small, low-cost transmitters that do not connect to your device directly. They simply broadcast a signal. Your phone's Bluetooth scanning picks up that signal. The result is that the beacon system knows your device was present at that specific location in the store at that specific time. Retailers use this to understand traffic patterns, which products customers spend time near, and how customers move through a space. But it also means every time you walk through a store with BLE beacons, your device is being logged, even if you're not buying anything, and even if your Bluetooth is toggled off in the quick settings. Disabling Bluetooth scanning prevents this. Your Bluetooth continues to work normally when you turn it on intentionally. The invisible background scanning stops. For iPhone users, the equivalent is somewhat more restricted by iOS's architecture. iOS gives third-party apps much more limited access to Bluetooth scanning data than Android does. But the system services that Apple controls can still use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for location purposes. In your location services settings, scroll down to System Services and look at Networking and Wireless. This controls whether Apple's system services use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for location. You can also turn off location services for system services that you do not use. Now let us run through the permission audit, because this is where you close the specific gaps that make you vulnerable to apps that are either over-collecting data or, in a worse scenario, compromised by a security breach. On both Android and iPhone, there is a permission manager, and using it is one of the most useful things you can do for your phone's security and privacy. The principle here is simple. Every permission an app does not need to function is a permission it should not have. Not because the app is necessarily malicious, but because unnecessary permissions are a necessary risk. If an app with microphone access is later compromised by a security vulnerability, your microphone is exposed. If the same app never had microphone access, it is not. On iPhone, go to Settings, then Privacy and Security. You will see a list of categories: location, contacts, calendars, reminders, photos, Bluetooth, microphone, camera, and more. Tap each one. For each category, you will see every app that has been granted access. Ask yourself, does this app need this permission to do what I use it for? A calculator app with microphone access has no obvious functional reason for it. A social media app with contacts access may be collecting your entire contact book to build connection graphs. A flashlight app with location access serves no legitimate flashlight function. For apps that do not have an obvious need for permission, revoke it. The app will still work for its core function. You might occasionally be prompted to grant access again if the app encounters a situation where it would use that permission, at which point you can make a more informed decision. On Android, go to Settings, then Privacy, then Permission Manager. You will see the same categories. The interface is slightly different across Android manufacturers, but the concept is identical. Work through microphone, camera, location, contacts, and SMS at minimum. Pay particular attention to apps that have access to your SMS messages. As we discussed in the previous guide, SMS Access allows an app to read your incoming messages in the background, including two-factor authentication codes. Unless an app has an obvious functional reason to read your texts, that permission should be revoked. For location specifically, both iPhone and Android give you granularity beyond a simple on-off toggle. You can set location access to always while using app, ask next time, or never. For the vast majority of apps, while using app is the right setting. Only navigation apps that need to track your route while they are running in the background, or apps like Find My on iPhone that specifically need persistent location access, have a legitimate reason for always access. Review every app set to always and ask whether that actually makes sense. Now let us talk about a security habit. That sounds almost too simple to be meaningful, but is actually grounded in specific documented threat intelligence. Turn your phone off once a week. Not sleep mode, not screen off. Completely off, then back on. The recommendation to reboot phones weekly comes from the United States National Security Agency. In guidance published for federal employees and subsequently made public, the NSA listed regular restarts as a mobile device best practice, specifically because of a category of attack called memory-resident exploits. The most famous example is Pegasus, developed by an Israeli company called NSO Group. Pegasus and similar sophisticated surveillance tools have been designed to compromise phones through zero-click attacks, meaning no action is required from the target. The phone receives a specially crafted message, perhaps an iMessage, perhaps a WhatsApp notification, and the exploit code contained in that message executes automatically, without the user opening or interacting with it. In some implementations of these attacks, the malicious code runs in the device's RAM, its temporary working memory, rather than being installed persistently in the phone's storage. If the phone is never turned off, this code can run continuously. A full reboot clears RAM and eliminates memory-resident infections, forcing a re-exploitation attempt rather than allowing persistent access. Most people will never be targeted by a sophisticated, state-sponsored surveillance tool, but the practice of weekly reboots has additional security benefits beyond this specific threat. It clears cached data that applications have built up in memory. It closes background processes that should not be running. It forces apps to re-authenticate with their servers, which can interrupt credential theft processes. And it applies security updates that require a restart to take effect, which is more common than most people realize. Once a week, before you go to bed, turn your phone completely off. Leave it off for a minute, turn it back on. That is the habit, 2 minutes per week, specifically recommended by the NSA. Let us also take a moment to talk about two settings that sit at the boundary between privacy and functionality in a way that requires you to make an informed choice rather than simply following a prescriptive rule. The first is personalized advertising settings within apps themselves. Most major apps and platforms, Google, Facebook, Instagram, X, Amazon, TikTok, have their own internal settings for personalized or interest-based advertising. These are separate from the device-level advertising ID settings. Even if you delete your Google advertising ID at the device level, Google's own apps will still show you personalized ads based on your Google account activity, unless you also go into your Google account's privacy settings and adjust data and privacy, then at privacy, and turn off the relevant toggles there. Each platform has its own equivalent. The device-level settings matter, but the platform-level settings are separate and need to be addressed individually. The second is whether to use a VPN, and this is an area where clarity matters because it is frequently misunderstood. A VPN, a virtual private network, routes your internet traffic through a server operated by the VPN provider, masking your traffic from your internet service provider and from websites you visit. It does not protect you from app-level data collection. It does not protect your advertising ID, and it does not stop the background. Scanning we discussed. It specifically addresses the privacy of your internet traffic on the network level. If you use a trustworthy VPN on public Wi-Fi, your traffic is encrypted from the point your phone sends it to the VPN server. The risk you need to understand is that your VPN provider now sees your traffic instead of your ISP. If you use a free VPN, you should ask yourself what the business model is for a service that costs money to operate and charges you nothing. Often the answer is that your traffic data is the product. Here's what the full picture looks like when you put all of these steps together. You delete the advertising ID that connects your activity across apps. You disable the background location logging that records your daily routine. You turn off the invisible Wi-Fi and Bluetooth scanning that lets beacons in retail spaces track your movement. You revoke permissions from apps that have no functional reason to hold them. You restart your phone weekly to clear memory-resident processes. You review platform-level advertising settings within major apps. None of this is technically complex. None of it requires any special knowledge or tools. Everything described here is accessible through your phone's existing settings menus, built by the manufacturers themselves, and available to every user regardless of technical background. The reason most people have not done these things is not that they are difficult. It is that the defaults are set the other way. The manufacturers and platforms that design these defaults have financial interests in your data being collected. The path of least resistance leads to maximum collection. Changing that requires active intent. You now have that intent and the specific knowledge to act on it. Every step described here takes minutes the first time and seconds when it becomes a habit. The phone in your pocket is a tool that can be set to work for you or for the companies that made it. Changing these settings moves the balance. That balance is worth moving. Start with the advertising ID today.